So who do you think is most impacted with this sweep of progressive Christianity? Now, uh, it's quite evident that progressive Christianity is taking a huge stand in the US and in the West. I haven't seen it as prominent in India or towards our side. Maybe there will be Christians who hold on to it, but I haven't seen it as prominent and as
Hmm.
structured in India. So
Good.
I think it's erroneous to maybe narrow it down to a region. But is it the youth or people who identify as homosexuals who want to hold on to progressive Christianity, people who are influenced by critical race theory? Where do you see
Mm.
this as having most impact?
Yeah, that's interesting to know that about India, because I'm pretty in tune with what's happening here in the U.S. and then I'll get letters from people in other countries. Like I've received several letters from people in Latin America that it's really growing there. I actually got an email from someone from Iran saying that, we saw all of these conversions and this revival happen a few years ago in Iran, and progressive Christianity is really growing among those new
Wow.
converts, which is really interesting to find out. But yeah, in the US, we are mostly seeing it expressed in the evangelical church. So, whereas in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you saw this theological liberalism kind of splinter off into the mainline Protestant denominations. And so it sort of was separated from the evangelical church for a while. But right now, the main expression of progressive Christianity is coming up and out of the evangelical church. So, largely speaking, progressive Christians are ex-evangelical American Christians. So this is definitely something, well, I guess we could say it started in Germany with the theological liberalism, but it's been revived and renewed in America, and we're kind of exporting it out to the world, it seems like right now,
Right.
within the evangelical church. And so whereas the emergent church movement happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, gatekeepers sort of managed to push that out, and people think it kind of faded away, but it actually didn't fade away. All of these leaders of the emergent movement found each other online, and this group kind of grew, and then they sort of festered in the evangelical church, and they were published on Christian publishing houses and speaking at conferences and getting booked at churches, and
Right.
it sort of kind of arose up and out of the evangelical church. But it's really, I mean, I got asked yesterday, how big of a deal is this in America? And I mean, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that for most faithful Christians, it's very difficult to find a church that's not in some way influenced, at least, by progressive Christianity.
Really?
It's very, very prevalent. Yes, especially, for a while I thought maybe the Reformed churches were kind of, because they're so doctrinal and they've got such strong guardrails up. But now we see critical race theory seeping in, and that the Reformed church is very vulnerable with critical race theory, which I've watched some of my Reformed, people that I follow go from completely seeing through the progressive Christianity to promoting books written by progressive Christians because they are critical race theory books, and they don't realize the connection. And so I think,
Right.
every there's no church in America that can just let their guard down and think, well, we're going to see through this, because it comes in from so many different areas, and there are different churches have different vulnerabilities to it. So yeah, it's a really big problem.
And hearing about the permeation of progressive Christianity, I'm quickly reminded about Jesus saying about beware the yeast or the Pharisees, how it's small, but it permeates
Yes.
across the entire